Greetings and welcome to the Department of Tangents podcast, a conversation with musician Mark Geary featuring a track from his new album, The Fool. I'm your host, Nick Zano. Years ago, I reviewed Geary's album Ghosts for the sadly departed Boston Phoenix, and I'd popped that CD into my player on occasion, but I fell out of touch with his music for a while. Then a couple of months before this interview, I got an instant message from Geary on Facebook that he'd be playing just a few miles away. It was around 2 in the morning, but I got my tickets a few minutes later and saw a fantastic show at a little place called the Carriage House in Newburyport, Massachusetts. It was wonderful to catch up with Geary and hear his new music. When I got him by phone from Ireland, the circumstances of that show led to a conversation about Facebook and Instagram as tools for getting the word out about shows and new music. In the middle of his career, the parameters for promoting yourself as a one-man traveling band changed, and while it's still very hands-on, it can feel kind of insincere. We talked about not letting social media get in the way of actually creating art, a difficult proposition when you need to fill a room to keep gigging to even have a place to play your songs for people. We got into details about his new album, The Fool, in the latter half of the podcast, how people don't always catch the humor in his lyrics, and about trying to capture the mood of the late-night post-gig drive in the songs. For comedy fans, Geary talked about watching Colin Quinn during his time in New York, and for horror fans, there's a bit at the end about a movie, A Quiet Place, which Geary had said he was looking forward to seeing when I saw him live. Very slight spoilers in that conversation if you're sensitive to that kind of thing. If you don't know Geary, I hope hearing him prods you to check out his music, and if you do know him, this wide-ranging conversation should be a treat. Geary has a brand new video for his song Don't Break from the new album, so stick around at the end to hear that song, and check out the blog at departmentoftangents.com to see the video. At the beginning of the conversation, we talk about his recent gigs in Portugal, a place Geary had not played previously. That piqued my curiosity since Geary is such a talented lyricist and a great storyteller live. I wondered how that would translate in a place where there might be a language barrier. That's where we start talking about playing for international audiences. So now, here's Mark Geary. Do you have to play for audiences that don't necessarily speak English frequently?
Have to.
Or do you?
I just do. Germany. I go to Germany a lot. I go to Switzerland and the Czech Republic and Austria. I've been in Spain and Portugal now. A little bit. Ireland is. We're just a little island, but we're on the cusp of 500 million people, and I need to be out there and working and finding places. It's very much traveling salesman, It's the luxury is that I get to do what I do each night or whatever. But absolutely. You're out there in countries that it's not their language and whatever. And then the magic, so the challenge then is, okay, so how do I, with my songs and with the stage kind of show or whatever it is I'm doing or whatever, how do you make that work? How do you make it translate? I'm certainly of the opinion that if music is universal and it's the oldest kind of form of communication, that, I can certainly make it work. I can certainly, there's no barrier,
Mm-hmm.
And then the little gestures that I can do, the little kind of phrases in whatever language, absolutely, I'll do the work. I'll do my homework. And just grab someone and say, how do I say that? And how do I say, could you please sing along with me? This is an easy song, or how, well, I'm constantly doing that,
Well, language is such an important part of what you do. To have that part at least somewhat removed must be a challenge.
Well, it is, or at least you think it is. Do good songs actually stand up when maybe some of the subtleties of the little phrases or the cleverness or whatever poetic little thing you're doing, if that's kind of removed or diminished in some way, do they stand up? The thing I of course in Portugal is the fado singing, which northern Portugal, it felt very Irish. I have to say, very. They seem deep. They seem deep thinkers and kind of not the kind of Spanish kind of fiesta and that everything is kind of free and easy. It felt a little. It felt a little more Irish, a little more. Yes, there's humor or whatever, but there's a little bit of darkness, and so. But to answer your question, absolutely, and the challenge is how do I convey this? How do I convey these songs and in a way that maybe they can connect to? Also, the other thing is that, you never want to kind of overthink this stuff. I mean, I've 5 records, 6 records worth of songs. That's what I have. That's the raw material I have to work with or whatever. Maybe some go over a little more, or maybe some are more kind of anthemic, or there's a hook to it, or there's a something. But at no point during these kind of shows that I feel it's inhibiting me in any way. Then you just commit to absolutely singing it the best way and the most passionate way you can actually sing it. I think people respond to that.
Then they connect with the music and the melody and what's happening with your voice.
Yeah. And because English is just everywhere. I was just astonished that the words that are similar, or cultural. I think cultural references are almost becoming global references. There are certain things that I have that song "Volunteer," so there's a Star Wars reference and whatever.
Yes.
So if I mention that, I tip my hat to that or whatever, then they listen out for it. Also it seemed, I went to in one of the schools. I went for 3 days at the level of English was really incredible. So it's a yes and no. I think you can overcomplicate things and perhaps worry that, oh my God, all of my stories and all of the way I have kind of been doing my shows over the years, depends on this.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting, and actually the great thing as a performer to go, actually all of that comfort, all of that, things that you lean on, we're going to take that away from you, and now it's just, find another way when you're constantly thinking about, okay, this is your audience tonight, or this is the perception of the audience tonight, make that work.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear. It's actually a great thing. It makes me better.
Did you have anything similar when you came to New York from Ireland? It's a common language. It's still English, but was there anything that people found difficult to understand?
Well, I remember I have a vivid memory actually of I landed in the afternoon from JFK, and that night I was actually working. I was working in a restaurant, and it was very clear, very, very quickly, that there would be this kind of double take, or kind of a, if I was speaking really fast and kind of doing the Dublin kind of mumble, I just wasn't going to be understood. So things slowed down very quick, and lots and lots of Irish people living there, and
right.
There's an absolute, there's a beautiful kind of connection between New York and Ireland and all of that or whatever. But I did, and I bartended and whatever. I think I just slowed down. Also, every country, every city you ever go to, they really like when you talk about their city.
Mm-hmm.
You can't constantly just come with all of your T-shirts and all of your these are my references from home. There has to be some kind of little communication where you're not being, because then it just becomes, all those references are lost. And with New York, I had those already in place because I was obsessed with the city, long before I ever even got there. So I think it was an easier fit, and I certainly was a willing kind of student of New York, even when I started to live there. I would, all of my Woody Allen, New York, Lou Reed references, all of them were appropriate and actually still felt quite relevant. New York, when I got there in the early 90s, was still a bit of a bonkers kind of city, and a lot of the old throwbacks to the 70s and the early 80s and whatever, just as far as how people lived and how edgy it was,
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't struggle so much. I honestly, I just remember loud and clear, just thinking, Mark, you just need to slow down here, because this is you need to get paid, and these people just they don't quite understand the mumbling.
What year did you move to New York?
92, 93, I think. Yeah.
What prompted the move?
The great motivation that is desperation.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was just no work. There was no work here, no work that I was interested in, and my brother had put my name down for a Morrison visa at the time. It was Senator Donnelly and Senator Morrison, who were kind of championing the kind of the Irish undocumented, as they were called.
Mm-hmm.
And they created, they passed this bill that there would be an amnesty, that from wherever you were, you could put your name down into this lottery. If your name came up, you would go through the process of legally getting a green card and that type of thing. So my brother put my name down, and my name came up, and within 2 weeks I was gone.
Mm-hmm. And was it music that you came here to pursue? Is that the work?
It was everything, Nick. I wasn't so blinded by my own kind of genius or anything to think like, okay, I'm going to go there and things are going to happen. I didn't know what the thing I had was. I knew a lot of singers here. I knew a lot of guys who played guitar or whatever. I was certainly not exceptional, and so I went because I had no reason to stay. It felt like it would be an opportunity. Yes, even though I was fearful of going, and I went on a one-way ticket, and it was a sink or swim kind of scenario. I just felt I thought I was in my own kind of life. I felt quite lost in Dublin. I hadn't really found. I wasn't going to college. I wasn't pursuing a career. I didn't have an apprenticeship for anything that I was particularly good at. So all of those doors and all of those things to keep you in a city were kind of closed off to me, and
Mm-hmm.
so I took the option that was given me. Here's a green card. You've got a green card. There used to be that. I said it. There used to be graffiti in all the pubs and all the little toilets and whatever, with the last person out of Ireland, please turn out the light. That was really a reality, because there was so many people who just found themselves in this sort of situation where they're getting on planes and boats because they just Ireland Dublin could not sustain them. It was a backwater. It was in the doldrums of unemployment. And, there was just nothing going on. Not that there wasn't creativity, because it's always been that kind of city, but it just, as far as just the numbers were just overwhelming. So hundreds of thousands of people from the late 80s into 98, 2000 or whatever had left. Incredible.
And had you established yourself as a songwriter there in any sense? Did you know that's what you wanted to do if you had your choice?
No, I'd done precious little, really. I'd done some pretty awful kind of, I suppose, what would be open mics, and I was playing in some bands, and I got to play around the city and done some traveling around Ireland or whatever, where maybe 4 people might show up. But guitar and singing to myself, and absolutely that was the thing that I did. But to equate that with this was a thing that was going to be a career, I don't think I even thought about it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I sold my 2 guitars to get the money together to go to New York. You know.
Oh, so you didn't come to New York with an instrument?
I didn't. Yeah. No, I landed with a very small bag, and as I said, you know, that night I was working in a restaurant and trying to figure out table numbers and how this chaos actually worked, you know.
Hmm. When was the moment you decided that that's what you wanted to do? Was there one moment, or did it happen sort of gradually?
It wasn't one. My brother Kyle had the Chine Cafe had been open and had established itself as a kind of as a meeting place and as a place that had really amazing musicians playing every night. So that was my focus, and that was the place I went to, and that was my kind of identity, I suppose. I got to know everybody and asked a lot of questions or whatever, and then there was open mic nights in some of the other places, and even as you ask me now, like I don't actually remember making a conscious decision. Okay, this is what I'm going to commit to do,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to really go, you know, gung ho on this or whatever. I just very organically kind of graduated towards the very people that I always had gravitated towards. I wanted to be around music and musicians, and I related to them, and kind of very quickly I did continue to write songs, and then maybe the songs had evolved a little bit. I was around great guitar players, and kind of watched them play, and you know, I think I got into the nuts and bolts of songwriting. And then with the open mic, we got 2 songs. And there was this guy called Latch. He was very, very helpful and very encouraging to me. Really great guy. And so I'd go off, and I within the week, you know, I'd just be around heard a lot of American country music, Americana, that I really, really loved. And there was kind of real guys who were started to play in Chile, and just really authentic kind of songwriters, and I was very interested in that. Jeff Buckley was there, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So there was lots all around me. So I think I started to sponge on all of it, and you know, go off to the movies for $10 and get a double bill of old black and white films, and you know, it was just constantly kind of just being around the scene of people and varying kind of disciplines of, you know, poets and slam poets and all kinds of stuff. And then I would go back and sit with my guitar, and it was just what started to come out of me really, really thrilled me and excited me and made me kind of nervous a little bit, because there was some kind of change in that was happening in me. So I guess I started to focus on that and started to get gigs, and gradually started to kind of build up something of an audience and whatever.
Was that thrilling for you that time when you started to realize, hey, this might be what I wind up doing?
Well, it's funny because music, you know, you have to be really careful with the thrill of it. And by that I mean thrilling that, you know, there's a room full of people who've come to see you. You have to be careful, because, you know, if you're thrilled by that, then you're going to be really, really disappointed where you go to a place and you don't have that security again and whatever. So I remember just being absolutely thrilled, and as I said, you know, I was slightly nervous because, you know, get on a bus and spend 4.5 hours to Boston, knowing in your heart absolutely no one in Boston has ever heard of you.
Right.
And no one cares. Like, no one cares, and that's not personal because they haven't had the opportunity to care.
Right.
And you're just starting off in this thing. So what do you have to say? Like, who the hell are you? You're not even formed yet.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I absolutely was that soldier who got on buses and made those journeys, and they were awful, and there was no one. And you have to do the gig. You have to do things because you didn't want to piss off the promoter who kind of agreed reluctantly to put you on at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night.
Right.
To play to know him. The walls, the waitress, and the weirdos, we used to say, that one guy sitting in the corner, he's, God knows what he was doing, But,
well, you've got to give them the opportunity to care. That's the thing. Finding the way to present the opportunity to strangers to care about what you do.
Absolutely. And honestly, it still continues. Okay, so now I show up with, kind of a lifetime of experience, and I know what it is that I'm doing, the muscle memory of all of those gigs and all of those things or whatever. So you don't walk on a stage like the slaughtered lamb
Right.
that you wear. There's no question of that, and it's an interesting kind of idea, but I think you can walk on with a certain level of humility and acceptance, and I was absolutely prepared to play to 40, 50 people in Portugal if that's who showed up, then that's who I was going to play to,
Mm-hmm.
Because it's 40 or 50 more people that were seeing me in Portugal compared to yesterday. It's already a huge leap. So yeah, I just got really, really, I just learned, because it's too painful. It's too painful to have these expectations of you're going to go to places and the bunting is already there welcoming you to the city or whatever. That just hasn't been my experience. But what I have done is that I've worked with people that kind of liked what I did and were kind of passionate about getting me back and putting on a beautiful show, and it's just like, here's the audience and you just go do your thing.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee that connection will be made the way you'd like it to be too. That seems frightening in some ways.
There absolutely is no guarantee. There has never been a guarantee, because it's all those contracts I've signed or whatever. I haven't seen that clause that says, okay, Mark, we agreed to do the gig on this night, and you're going to show up, and this type of audience is going to be there, and the magic happens. That's just not. It's not in the contract. It's not. But I have to say, it's a very, very rare night that I haven't found a way. Not that I'm, because an audience must come and meet you too. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I can extend and get a temperature of the room or whatever. But at the same time, I have my dignity too, or whatever. If you don't have that or whatever, then you're looking around the room just desperately trying to find a friend almost. It's like your first day at school. It doesn't feel like that anymore. Where any notion of winning an audience over by any means just isn't what I do anymore. But I certainly, you don't know any better, and maybe you don't have confidence enough in your songs, or maybe you don't have any songs at all. First couple of years, I probably had 3 or 4 kind of 5 or 6 songs or whatever.
Well, you told the story when you were in Newburyport about
Yeah.
early on having maybe not such a great manager getting you gigs. I don't know if you want to tell that story or if that's something you save
Oh, sure.
for the
Yeah, no,
shows.
the booking agent down in Orlando, Florida.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, these were the kind of people, and you know, see, that's the hard part about the business too. At a certain level, these are the only people that you come in contact with. You know, kind of charlatans and footpaths, and you know, is that Hunter S. Thompson line? The music business is filled with cutthroats and charlatans and people who will steal your soul or whatever. But there is a dark side.
Yes. Right.
So this guy, he supposedly he was a booking agent, and we were constantly at him to, we thought, well, a booking agent, he'll have access to, nicer venues or venues that we wouldn't have to kind of cold call. He would be representing me or whatever. And when I eventually got down to Orlando, Florida, and it was Disneyland that I ended up playing. When I eventually got down there to do the show, which was absolutely appalling, he suggested that I stay in his house to kind of keep costs down, kind of save some money. And when I got there, I realized that he had been under house arrest. He had a bracelet, and he'd been tagged, so he couldn't leave his house. And
Right.
Not the greatest booking agent. A guy who can't even leave his own apartment.
Mm-hmm.
I do all my own booking, just because. Look, Ireland is a small 4.5 million people. I picked the places: Dublin, Galway, Belfast, Cork, Kerry, Limerick. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Really, you could do it in 4 days. You can do it in a week. But that's why I'm constantly looking outwards. To just keep finding places to keep the fires going. It's just the way it is. With Facebook and with all these kind of things, whatever. You have all these people who are online, and the trick is to try rise above the noise, rise above the squall of everyone taking pictures of the pizza they're having, or we're all engaged in that kind of, everyone's banging their own drum and trying to be heard or whatever. And I think possibly to the detriment. I vividly remember just thinking, God, this is a full-time job. The music that I'm actually creating almost feels like it's secondary, or you need that amount of time to have a kind of that awful expression, online presence or whatever. So I for myself, I had to learn how to do it that it didn't feel like I was just constantly kind of talking about myself. Talking about myself is possibly one of the most boring things I could think of. But talking with people and talking about experiences and the places that people have gone to, or what they do for their job, or what they think about it, who they love and who they dislike, all of that, I find that incredible. I find it really interesting. I love being around.
Mm-hmm.
But I find the constant kind of online, hi everybody, don't forget to like and blah blah blah. I find that just absolutely unbearable.
Well, that sort of changed in the middle of your career. It was sort of more traditional, and then social media popped up. Sort of, I guess maybe the halfway point, or maybe.
No, absolutely did. I mean, people would talk about in MySpace that it was going to be this incredible savior that just because you had a little profile page and 30 seconds of your songs, that the entire world were suddenly going to discover Mark Geary, and pack my bags because I'm off to Singapore after 6.
Uh-huh.
And of course that didn't happen, and MySpace didn't either.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I just have to learn. I happen to like Instagram, and I happen to, as much as I can. I'm not anywhere near as prolific as, you go onto someone's Twitter account and it's, 500,000 tweets in the last year or whatever.
Right.
Like Donald Trump levels,
Well, not all of us have that kind of time.
Yeah. Well, he has a lot of subjects to cover, He's got a lot on. And I've always done that kind of, even when I'm talking about gigs that I've just booked or toured on, there's, I just can't help but there's always a kind of a tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, the hard sell is definitely something I've been particularly comfortable with. So I do engage in my own kind of audience or whatever because I find that much more comfortable than. And don't forget to pick up the poster and the badge, and
right?
And visit my shop. It feels insincere, is what it does. It feels, it's just, if I wanted to be a salesman, I would have been in sales. And who knows? Maybe the whole time I was in music, I was actually in sales. Who knew? But I yeah, I'm much more comfortable engaging in actual real conversations and as opposed to the hard sell, like this kind of fake, this kind of fake intimacy or fake friendship or whatever.
Right.
So that's what it feels like. Someone with the 5 million friends and yet the very personal, kind of motivational little quote for the day and all that. It's horrible. It feels horrible.
Well,
saccharine and insincere,
Well, how do you make the space for the art then? I assume sometimes you wake up and you have a choice between writing the song that's been in your head for a week or finishing off all of those Facebook events posts and inviting people. Sometimes there has to be a choice.
Yeah, well, if it was a choice, and it never is, because the choice has already been made for me, I have to write the song. I go to the guitar first thing, almost to get a temperature of what I'm thinking about and what's going on with me, Because if I don't have that, then I have nothing to sell anyway, I've nothing to say, and I've nothing to contribute, I'm not sure I'd be on any of these kind of social media platforms or whatever. I'm not sure. I might be that guy that out in the woods with no electricity and just making it work with a water pump. I might be that guy,
On the other hand, I'm happy it exists because I got to see you, in part because you sent me a Facebook message somewhere at 2 a.m. before the gig you played in Newburyport, and I was there.
I mean, like there, those type of things. Like, oh my God, you're playing, and I can totally come. I bring my girl, and it's really nice to meet you, or whatever. So yeah, absolutely. When social media really works, and like of a Friday morning, when I'm here, I go off to the post office and post vinyls and CDs and posters to people who have bought the music directly from the website.
Mm-hmm.
So that feels incredible. That still feels kind of joyful to me. I go off for a little coffee and I go to the post office and send this stuff off to the far-flung places of the world.
And do you start the morning with your guitar? You said that's the sort of the first thing you reach for.
And coffee, Nick, I won't lie. Coffee has to go on. You know, nothing happens without the beans. But I do because I'm still excited about what it is that might come out, because don't believe the hype of that sitting there with a guitar or any of that stuff or being creative is easy in any way. So it's almost just kind of like, wow, I've learned the trick again. But there's another song. There it is. Wow. And the old adage of 90% perspiration, 10% inspiration is absolutely true. You know?
Well,
how lucky do you get if you're constantly at the guitar and you get a song? Well, which was it? Was it you just got really lucky, or the fact that you are kind of messing with different chords and singing other people's songs, or when you're at the guitar, you're at work. You just don't know what you're writing yet.
Do you continually play and look for things, or does inspiration strike and you pick up your guitar and?
It happens when I'm playing. I've never. I mean, very, very rarely do I catch a phrase at the guitar when the guitar is nowhere near me. I'm walking down the street, or I come up with a line. That very rarely happens. And what happens is that the melody and the guitar actually happen all at once, and the song writes itself in about 3 minutes. That's usually what happens.
You called it song mining at one point on your website.
Yeah, it does. Or sculpting or something. Like you're in the blind. You're in the dark with it, because you don't really know what it is you're actually trying to say until the song is a phrase will jump out, or there's only a finite amount of chords that you can play. So you're playing around in music that you're kind of familiar with. I always find that the stuff that happens is when you're not really consciously thinking about really anything, that it just pops out, and it sounds different from something you've done before. You think you're playing a song, but then you're not. Something else happens. Now, from that point to an actual finished song, sometimes you don't get to finish it. It's just that unfinished thing that you can toil over it. But then the toiling of that sometimes gets you to another song that writes itself in 3 minutes. So it's the excitement of that, the excitement of just for its own sake, just for its own, that you've written something, that you've completed something, and that may be kind of beautiful or sad or poetic or funny or any of those things. Just in the doing.
How many one verse and a chorus songs do you have lying around that you just can't get to that second chorus and a bridge?
What starts to happen is that they get so painful that you do actually stop playing them. Like it's like a relationship that you give it a good solid 3 months, and then you go, you know what? This is never actually going to be anything. And once the song that was supposed to be written gets written, it's almost as if that your brain has just kind of deleted the whole process. And once the little bit, like on the Fool, I woke up waiting for the band and my producer Carl to kind of wake up. I was up early, as I do, and the copy was on, and I went to the guitar to go back over a song that I was trying to kind of get lyrics for, called Rosebud. It was kind of the JJKO kind of little stomp. But I went to it's the same beginning chord, it's in G, but I went to play the Rosebud, and I started playing this other thing, and then so I wrote Lesson Learned. That morning, just because of that riff and that ding, and I was really digging the kind of way I was singing it. There was a certain, you're calling to say that, and I thought, it's kind of ballsy and kind of something cool about whatever that is. So I wrote it, I wrote it, and wrote the little breaks and whatever. And it was just the tag bit at the end. And we kind of worked all together. And then I was like, oh my God, wait till the guys get up. I think that might be a thing. It might be something worthy. Might be something worthy of the album. And then I picked up the capo and was still using a G and moved up like 7 frets and was still kind of playing. So now I had the riff of Lesson Learned and the Rosebud, and I started playing it differently. And then I wrote Happy. In that moment, you're like, so 20 minutes. That's what I got. It'll probably be another 6 months before I even get close to getting another kind of 2 songs in a day. But when you're making a record, the brain suddenly is going like, oh, it's that thing. He's doing that thing, and going to the microphone to record when you have no lyrics. That's amazing what your brain will start to do to make connections, commit to a certain line, and then go back again and go, okay, so I had that line, okay, roll it again, and I've written songs on the mic.
Mm-hmm. Does that happen a lot that you write lyrics on the mic?
It has to happen a lot because you book this time in the studio, you've done a little bit of pre-production, and I've become very comfortable with knowing or at least pursuing a certain idea or whatever. Maybe like Frostbite was one of the last songs that I actually wrote. But I just thought it was something really interesting and kind of dark about it, and the way I was singing the melody or whatever. So I just kept getting Carl to just roll the tape, and we had a kind of a backing track of me doing the guitar, and we pieced together a drum track and whatever. So it was just a question of me finding the words. It was the same with the Fool. I had a melody. I just needed to find the right words. So it took about a month because I was much more interested in just throwing a load of kind of guitars and shakers and just having great fun with actually making the track. And Carl kept saying, actually that has to be a song that we're all playing to. And I was like, I know. I said, well, come to me, And then 7 pages in front of me with all different kind of lines, and so it was like a performance with liner notes. And I said, okay, roll the tape, and let me just go for the thing. And so with all of the possible selection of various kind of lines that I could have written and absolutely had sung to, the version that is the version is my choices right there and then onto a mic that I could commit to and sing properly.
Is there an alternate version somewhere with every lyric you wrote for it?
There is an alternate version that, you remember those old books you used to be able to buy where you get to the castle gates and take a left, and then and then the story go to page 17 and the story continues if you've taken the left turn.
Yes, the choose your own adventure stories.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So in some part of the universe there's a multi-layered verse chorus in that song, But what's beautiful is once you can sing it and commit to the actual lyrics you're doing and going, you know what, I think I know what I'm saying there. That's the only line that could ever be. Everything else just disappears. It's a very cool way of if you're comfortable enough, and if you're committed to knowing that there's a little groove thing here that if you stay with it, it'll reveal itself. 2 months later you might have a song. 2 months later you might go, I think we need to press delete on that because it's not ever given us anything. That happens too.
Do those other lyrics become another song somewhere?
No, I'm usually quite brutal. This is an incredible release Like, look, if I'm really, really struggling with a song and really trying to find the, you know, yeah, no, it has that lovely bit and it's this and that or whatever, and I'm struggling really, really to just listen to it throughout the song, no one else is going to give you that time. You press delete and you kind of move on.
What's the feeling when you first play a new song in front of people?
It can be tricky, but I've you know, of course you find yourself in that situation all the time. You know, you're trying to be, but you know, you like your brain is, you know, you're really present. You're just trying to remember the chord changes and the way the way in which you sang it the first time. That's what you're trying to do. You know, then they change as well. You know, there's certain songs that have just become happy or something like that. When I first started, it was very kind of gentle little strumming thing when I played it in front of an audience. But then, if I have Grania singing the harmony, it becomes this other thing. I remember touring with Glenn and Glenn Hansard, and I had just written that song, Happy, and I wrote it out because I thought it would be a cool thing to do in front of this you know, pretty big audience each night to be brave, to be really kind of brave. Okay, so this is a new song, and here's the book. Like I'm showing you, I'm breaking the fourth wall here. I'm showing you that look, this is how on together this actual song is, and I need the lyrics because they're not to memory yet. So I've absolutely done that, and that's fantastic. That's a real thrill, you know, when that happens. Because then what, you know, like all I want my songs to do, all I want my new songs to do is to fit into the deck of cards that I have at my disposal when I'm going out to meet an audience.
Mm-hmm.
I have this kind of body of work that I can, particularly when I'm playing solo, I can move around. I can change set lists on a whim as I do. You know,
Mm-hmm.
the rare thing, like songs sometimes kind of disappear on you. You can't sing it. You just can't sing it anymore. And they aren't necessarily the songs that are the oldest songs.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're just songs that just, you know, just don't stay with you, and then they come back. You know, there's other songs that come back, and then there's other songs that never leave you, never fail to kind of just do what it says on their little tin. You know, endlessly fascinating to me. I don't know why some songs do that.
Well, then
and then there's songs on albums that you'll never do live. You know, because they're kind of like in a studio with a weird like little loop or something. It'll be a cool exercise in the studio that, you know, will sound lovely on a record, but you don't ever bring it in your suitcase. You know?
Well, there are some electronica sort of touches on the new album on Battle of Troy a little bit. There's that very earthy synthesizer at the end, and the title track, which comes up on my CD, by the way, as D Groove instead of The Fool.
Yes, that's right. That's a little nod to Carl, because my producer Carl Odlin. Because you know, when you're first starting to make the record or whatever, you just have references. You just have references of, okay, so what's that one again? What's that one? You know, like you don't have. Some of them you might have song titles straight away, but not always.
Uh-huh.
And so it's all of the bass strings are all dropped down into kind of a detuned to D.
Uh-huh.
So it was a D groove. I can't talk it. So it was a little nod to Carl.
Do you have would you say you have a particular sound that's this is what a Mark Geary song should sound like?
I don't know. I couldn't. I think each of my records are kind of quite different sounding.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's for someone else. I you know, is there a way, a turn of phrase, or a particular way of playing guitar, maybe that I might do, a way of singing? I don't know. You know, I know the things that I really love. I know the things that you know, that kind of close vocal and a Nick Drake JJ Cale kind of, there's a sweet spot on the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
That almost, but it's by virtue of you being there, that position of your voice, it kind of dictates almost, if you're kind of belting out a song or whatever, you're never there. You're never at that part of the microphone because it's just too much. So, but certainly the kind of quieter stuff. I always kind of wanted to. I wanted to be part of the songs I listened to late at night. I thought that was a great motivation for me. That I could, those kind of great radio stations that just played just really kind of sad or kind of melancholy or just great late night music or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And I think from quite early on making records or whatever, I wanted because I knew nothing in the studio and I had to kind of learn the stuff, learn the dialogue and the terminology or whatever. That was always it was a reference point that I could explain to the producer or whatever. So it's kind of like a late night thing. If you turn down the lights for me and let me just sing the song, so I get very close to the microphone, so it pick up. The really good microphones are very kind of photogenic or audiogenic,
Uh-huh.
and so the great mics will just pick up all of that kind of the crackle and the imperfections of your voice, which I adore. Actually, my favorite singers aren't great singers. My favorite music and all of that is by there's a little bit of imperfection or a little bit of just total belief in the performance or whatever. And those things were always hugely important to me. So and then it comes with confidence, like the guy who just doesn't think about it. You don't think about the performance because you go, okay, did we get it? Great, okay, next song. It's for the listener to enjoy all of that, But I'm a listener, of course, in other people's music, so I'm a listener in that regard. But for my own self, it's great to have confidence enough to go, yeah, no, I can't do any better than that. That's wonderfully imperfect.
Mm-hmm. Well, you seem to have a certain spectrum. You have those. You have more gentle acoustic songs, some things that are a bit more atmospheric, and then things that tend to be more electric with a stronger backbeat.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of, because, when I brought the guys to Portugal, these were more, certainly of a traditional kind of Irish music thing. But I was, even the songs that they were doing, they were saying, there's groove. There's always a groove. There's always a thing. Just because, I don't listen to dance music. I don't necessarily know where that comes from. But I think of all of the touring I did on my own, it became necessary to be your own kind of band.
Mm-hmm.
That if you were going out to try and win a room, your right hand and the speed in which to play and to pick tempos or whatever. So so even the quiet stuff, I knew that in the noisier kind of rooms or whatever, I could make it work. It could be dynamic. It could be whatever, So I guess I've always had that in my kind of arsenal or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe always been mindful of the kind of cliched singer-songwriter. I know people that if they say, listen, I'm going to see a singer-songwriter tonight, they literally would jump out a window rather than go with you to see the gig. It comes with a certain baggage,
Yeah.
And I absolutely don't want to ever subscribe to that kind of maudlin way. It's also humorless too. It's just I don't ever want to be the me guy and my pain and my blah blah blah. It's so indulgent. It's so so full of shit, and and the writing is usually really, really appalling. So even if the guy was really kind of miserable, you don't ever really believe it. Just the manicured hands and the handsome face, and you go like, dude, I don't believe any of this. You know, you're not a hillbilly. You're not a like none of this stuff is actually true. You know, it seems such a charlatan. You know, sitting up there singing about his pain and his suffering and blah blah, blah, and you believe none of it.
Uh-huh.
So like look, Bob Dylan isn't even Bob Dylan. He's fucking Robert Zimmerman. But
Right.
how is it that his writing, you absolutely believe every single record? You believe, the hobo, and you believe all of it, even though you know it's not true. But there's a way you can write that feels true to the song. At least it feels true to the narration of the song and the spirit of the song, or whatever. So I think I think even the quieter kind of stuff, and then the electronica and little bits of keyboard and like cool little bits,
Uh-huh.
just to keep it kind of popping and keep it, that kind of jumps out at you, So I haven't been listening to the Beatles all this time, Radiohead and whatever, without it kind of seeping in and having influenced what it is that I do. I just think that, those choices, it's all ear candy, at the end of the day.
There is considerable humor in some of the songs too, and I wonder if that always comes across to an audience. When you played "You're the Only Girl," for example, when I saw you most recently, there's the line you changed the tag at the end of the song. "You're the only girl for me, 'cause you're the only one I've found," and that got a great laugh. Do people always catch that?
Nick, so much so that they haven't caught it. I've had people come up to me and say, "We used that for our wedding song." We walked out of the church. With that song playing, and I'm not going to be the guy to tell them, "Have you listened to the last little coda of that?" I'm not. I'm not going to be that guy to point them to that part of the song. I'm not, because it just got swept up in the story of the first four verses, and but yeah, I mean, it's almost you don't want to point people to the. It's like bad comedy or whatever. You point people to the applause and the punchline or whatever. It's, if people are listening, they're awake, they'll hear it. And also, in absolute truth, those songs or a song that has a little bite at the end or a little something or whatever. I'm writing it as if I'm listening to the song for the first time. I don't know that ending is coming.
Right.
So when that little twist or that little thing happens, I'm as delighted or amused or wow, okay. And so it was absolutely true for that song or whatever. Those other four verses, it's probably the way I can sing it and commit to those verses.
Mm-hmm.
They ring true to me. The 1,000 situations that let you down, and I've lost some friends I used to have. All of these kind of setups and verses, and then at the end, it's an Oscar Wilde, a thin lip wisdom, which I just thought was such a lovely turn of phrase. The thin lip wisdom, just a visual of that, with the thin lips, pursed lips, and also there's another line at the end of that where the age-old rule of the old folks' home, the garden's out of bounds.
Yes.
But to get that in time with the song was kind of. I was really happy with that. And really, the age-old rule of the old folks' home, the garden's out of bounds. You're the only girl for me in this town. All I was trying to do was to fit "You're the only girl for me" for each thing. So I kind of that's what I was saying about sometimes a little phrase will jump out and it feels like, God, that's something. So it's how you build each little verse around it. Each verse of that the You're the Only Girl for me. Each verse is the beginning of a story.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some people some people haven't heard that last little bit of that song and some have or whatever. It's great. It's great sometimes when you play it and just to hear the reaction in the room and not hear the reaction in the room. That's kind of interesting. That's kind of cool and then a slow kind of dawn. That always makes me chuckle,
Well, when you were in New York, you're back in Ireland now, just so people know, and because we haven't established that part yet. But when you were in New York and you were seeing these musicians and these poets and everything, was comedy part of that landscape when you were here? Was that something you enjoyed or went to see or influenced you in any way as a songwriter?
I think I've always had that in my arsenal anyway. I mean, I was that kid in the classroom, so I don't remember. I used to go see Colin Quinn quite a bit.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
Amazing. There was a couple of those guys. Talk about a little kind of incubator of what I'd kind of shown into. There was a guy called Dominic Canacey. Dominic Canacey Jr. Dominic Canacey Sr. is actually, ironically, junior in The Sopranos.
Oh, okay.
He's the uncle, junior. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
But he's in Godfather 2, like Johnny Ola, like a serious kind of dude. But Dominic, his son, would organize these little events every Tuesday in New York, and he was very, very encouraging to me. And I would go down and sing songs and whatever. But Colin Quinn would be there. Then Dominic's father would come down and sing kind of old Italian love songs and make women swoon. And then there would be just a bunch of comedians would come or spoken word or whatever. And then we'd all hang out and have like food late at night. It was incredible. It was really, really incredible. I remember if there was a moment where things really started to, in its purest sense, in its absolute purest sense, that I really started to feel really inspired and confident about what it was that I'd be doing. That was the moment. But as far as the comedy, or I can certainly hold my own on a stage. There's lots of it's just a thing that you kind of it's like boxers always talk about having on the balls of your feet, always been able to adjust and pivot and whatever. And also I was around a lot of really, really really bright and really witty kind of dudes and whatever. So when you play cards against someone who's really good, you get better. So I think that's what happened.
Do I remember this right? Did you tell a story when I saw you that Down in Front was inspired by something that happened in New York City?
Oh, absolutely. I was constantly late for late night movies, and I often say, I'm in Dublin at the moment, and we're having a chat about New York, and when I was living in New York, I was thinking about home. So that kind of gives you an idea of that kind of how long sometimes it takes to process things, whatever. But I was making the actors, making the fool, and this whole nostalgia with New York was very much in my thoughts, and I started. It was just a little guitar phrase that I was messing with, and the word "down in the front" began the song. The little phrase "down in front," and it was because I would always be late for these kind of movies that I'd go to late at night, and I'd have to sit at the front of the cinema, and you'd have to move across. Your little fat head would be kind of blocking the screen, and someone would always shout out, "Hey, asshole!" down in front, down, sit down, and really, like a lot of the time, I think we're all kind of magpies, where we just grab things and just put it in a pocket, and then it gets used somehow, like little bits of tinfoil, little bits of sweet wrapper, whatever it is that sometimes it's the first aid kit that you just pull at and go, well, let me see what I have,
Uh-huh.
You're not even aware that little phrase. I probably have never said that phrase. I've never said until that song, because it started to become a kind of a love song, or something to New York itself, or my time there, or whatever.
Well, I enjoy the fact that the phrase triggered something else that has not a lot to do with the particular circumstances under which that phrase was created or you heard it, that it signifies something else, that it becomes...
That rarely happens. Like sometimes the story is its own kind of thing, that you're kind of introducing the song and this is what it is. But I suppose the motivation, I that's a great little story, but I can't find motivation to actually kind of write a song. I wouldn't know where to begin with something like that. And it was only really after the song had been finished that I actually realized I was very, very deeply thinking about New York and a girl, actually, which is always another great motivation. When you can kind of localize the reason you're singing the song, it's probably better. But even like we were talking about "You're the Only Girl for Me," that whole circumstance of me being there, what I actually sung about right at that night was completely separate. It was completely separate because it was just about me kind of sitting and just singing this song. It had nothing to do with the promoter or any of the stuff that had previously happened that night.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that stuff just doesn't. Maybe you're just aware that stuff just actually really isn't that interesting, or it isn't going to be as important in a week's time. It's just going to be a footnote or a funny story that you can tell.
I wanted to talk about Dandelion on the new album as well. That feels like something to me that should be all over the radio. It's got such a great hook. Did you feel that way about it when you wrote it? Or when you got it down on tape?
No. The absolute opposite. It took a really long time, and all I kept saying was, but listen, Dandelion. Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard? Why can't we, because I had all these guys. Glenn had got me in touch with a guy called Justin Carroll, who does the piano parts of that.
Uh-huh.
There's that great kind of Dave Hingerty is doing this kind of great, almost like kind of Neil Young, kind of Harvest, that lovely kind of full drum sound, harmonies and whatever. And we tried again and again and again and again and again, and we tried to put strings on it. We tried to put there's a brass section, make it less dirgy. All it did when we've finally we just stripped absolutely everything back. There was hundreds of guitars, hundreds of vocals, hundreds of backing vocals, and all kinds of kind of little bells and whistles going through. And we just stripped back and just said, no, let's delete that. And just to hear the song. So it's actually, from where it started, it's a very bare bones type of song, but it took forever. It was really a labor of love. And then what it absolutely did was, all of those fantastic kind of Van Morrison records that I've adored really all my life. It just gave me such an appreciation to the way those were recorded, because that was the way this should have been done from the start.
Uh-huh.
You gotta go up and down the mountains before you realize actually this is much simpler. This is much easier than we're allowing it to be. But it got very complicated quickly,
Because it's a very light song. It's a very light sort of delicate touch to it.
Exactly. But the only reason you're hearing the lightness was that, you know, it was drowning in all of the it was drowning in all of the instruments and all of the, well, this is great, this will be huge, this will be, you know, we'll do this big it has a lift, it has a natural kind of lift of the chorus and whatever. This will be great. Some songs just can't take the weight, like the D groove or the Fool. I literally could still be putting cool tracks onto that. I'd still, you know, and it'll take it all. It's like, it just has the capacity. It's like a black hole of a song that you could put another 10 keyboards on it. I mean, it would still groove, but still do its thing. And then other songs just won't let you do that to it. You know? So it's such a light touch, but it was only light after we took all of the stuff off it. You know. It's interesting because you know you put these records out and you don't know what's going to be received well or whatever. But Don't Break and Dandelion are the two that have been coming back, because it's only been a few months since it's been out, and you know people are still kind of listening to it and kind of figuring out if they have a favorite. If they do, that's great. But Dandelion and Don't Break are the two that come back and say, you know, that people are really loving those two songs.
And Battle of Troy was the first one you released from the album, right?
Yeah, well, just because, you know, it was a 3-minute hooky thing, and it was always hooky. It was always a thing, and it was just, again, an incredible amount of work and hours put to try. You know, it's the first song on the album. The first song is the single. You know, radio is still very, very, very important, just as important as it's ever been. You know, the internet has not diminished that in any way. You know, so I just wanted to give it a chance. Not that I was trying to write a song of a kind of a poppy kind of nature. It was that type of song anyway. I didn't really have to do a whole lot to it to make it hooky or whatever. So if you're there already, you know, try to have a cool little backbeat, and you know, so lots of harmonies and lots of kind of cool stuff or whatever. But it's interesting because people were aware of that one, and then Frostbite was released as well. But the Dandelion and Don't Break has been coming back as just people have got in touch and kind of downloads and Spotify or whatever. You know, you're aware of all of these things, whereas before you'd never know such a thing until you get to an audience and they started calling for it. So it's very interesting to me. You know, like I literally have no dog in this fight. You know, these are the songs that I wrote and these are the songs I put on the record. And how people respond to that, I just, you know, I find it interesting.
Well, do you have your favorites when you're finishing recording an album and then somebody likes something else and it's a little disappointing?
No, you just have to be really careful with that stuff. The songs you like are the songs you like, you know. You know, it's like the kid in the playground who runs in with the T-shirt of his favorite movie and has absolutely just been charmed by it for the last weekend. Goes into school and all his buddies and everyone is wearing the other T-shirt, and they're like, "What are you talking about? That song sucks." You can't. In boxing terms, it's called leading with the chin. You know,
right.
You just have to just get them done. Yes, I had favorite songs. Down in Front is a huge favorite of mine for a very specific reason, that it's kind of a New York thing or whatever. Holding Fire, just the fact that it got made as quickly as it did and became this kind of ending, kind of a monster. It turned out. I love Rose because I had the idea of a kind of a Simon Garfunkel, Bon Iver type of kind of vocal.
Oh, I got that definitely from that, but it did remind me of like Only Living Boy in New York or something.
Yeah, God, yeah. Like all of that, and like Fleet Foxes, or it was the easiest song that I think I've ever recorded, because it just, you know, the template was we'll do a harmony. Let's find a middle harmony. Let's do an answer reply. That was my favorite. One of my favorite moments of recording it. Where Grania is actually I'm singing the verse and there's a kind of a reply in the harmony of the verse. These are tiny incremental little moments that people, if they listen to the record, will hear on a set of headphones or in the car late at night. They'll hear it 18 months from now. It doesn't pop in there straight away. And I like I said, the late night music that I adored forever and still adore when I'm traveling, that's the aspiration to be in that canon, and go like, I've never heard that bit before. Holy shit, that's great.
What's in that canon for you? What of that late night music?
I'm sure Van is there, Joni Mitchell's there, J.J. Cale, Nick Drake, Leonard, who else is there? Stevie's there, Stevie Wonder's there. Not that there's any obscure kind of Beatles song, but there's something that they'll throw out late at night that you go like, oh my god, it's a Beatles song. And Radiohead are there. The more I was going to say, more kind of paranoid, okay, computer, just I had a doctor tell me once that late at night that your heart rate kind of really kind of slows down quite a lot, and it's quite common for if you're making music at that hour of the night that your heartbeat and the beat of the song will actually start to kind of sync up. I thought that was very, very cool. So the difficulty in writing, faster music, up tempo music, as you get into the nighttime, as it starts to become 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and how fatigued you are, because literally your body is actually slowing down, your heart rate is slowing down, and then you grab a guitar and you go, let me just try this song or whatever, and it's cool. It's slower. It's almost like the whole body is starting to process the day or whatever, and maybe get more reflective or contemplative or something. But so I've always responded to the kind of late night. Also, usually it's after a gig, it's the middle of the night, you're trying to get home, and you're having a good chat. Just things seem less frenetic late at night when the roads are clear and nice.
There's a certain irony to that, if to being after gig music for you. If you're aspiring to write that kind of music and you're playing that kind of music at the gig, and then you need someone else's version of that kind of music after the gig to get you to that place where you got everybody else to an hour ago. Yeah,
and it's happened that we've been heading home and my song comes on on the radio. In the midst of all of the other sounds that we're digging, like, wow, that's nice.
Do you leave it on?
Sure. Of course I do. Turn it up.
Because I know some people hate hearing themselves on record.
Yeah, I don't. I think after an album or whatever, I certainly haven't listened to the Fool since I checked the vinyl, checked the master, checked the CD master, and it went to print. I haven't that one listened intently because it was 2.5 years, 3 years in the making. There isn't a bell or a whistle that I don't know on the album. But I was in actually as we were traveling down to New York from Massachusetts one night. I had a copy of Ghost that I literally hadn't heard in 10 years. And I put it on and really, really enjoyed it and was able to listen to it with distance. And sometimes all you remember is the recording of that guitar or the where you were or whatever. But I really was able to enjoy it. I was delighted by it, actually.
Well, that's the album I came in on years ago, and I reviewed it. I'm not even sure if I could find the review online anymore. But that's where I think the album that you come into somebody on is the one that it tends to stick with you.
Yeah.
It's often your favorite one.
Yeah, for no reason. It's the go-to one. It's the comfortable glove that you go to. It's the comfortable jacket, you know.
Uh-huh.
I have lots of bands like that where it's just no, you just put on my album, put on, you know, the one that the band revealed themselves to you, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the moment, you know.
Now, when you were here, I wanted to ask you about this too. It's a bit off topic, but you mentioned that you were looking forward to seeing A Quiet Place when you were here. Did you wind up getting to see that?
Oh, I did.
What did you think?
I absolutely was astonished by it. It's one of the most beautiful movies I've seen this year. I really, really thought it was just going to be like some kind of silly slasher thing that I'd never go to see. You know, I don't watch those movies. And I was staying in New Paltz, which the opening scene is on that bridge.
Right,
where the
yeah.
kid gets snatched. It's that bridge. I was staying 200 feet up the road from it, so I went down and had a little look around. But I thought it was incredibly brave, and the whole notion of you know, it's a silent movie. Actually,
Yeah.
With this incredible kind of alien with these terrifying ears that can just hear everything. So
Right.
it was very funny in the cinema because it was quite full because people. It was a real kind of slow burn. It seemed that people were starting to really kind of respond to this movie. But even the way people were kind of watching the movie and eating their popcorn, suddenly audio, any sound whatsoever, even and just people became really self-conscious. You know, it was the most silent cinema I'd ever sat in because and just how clever it was, just how clever and just how badass Emily Blunt is.
Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it.
It's the perfect horror story for a musician as well, because you can't, you know, sound is the thing that kills you in this scenario.
Yeah.
You could never do what you do.
There's a gorgeous moment in it because there's the Neil Young song, and I think it must have been a remaster because there was guitars in it that I'd never heard. They've obviously tweaked it for the movie.
Harvest Moon.
It was incredible. That was incredible.
Thank you again for taking the time to speak with me. I'm very glad we got to catch up.
It was great.
An arrow to the head isn't always a trick.
Thanks again to Mark Geary for speaking with me by phone. You can find out more about the new album and his tour dates at markgeary.com, and that's Geary spelled Geary. And if you want to check out the video for Don't Break, head over to the blog at departmentoftangents.com. And if you liked this or any other episode of the Department of Tangents, please consider giving us a rating and or review on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you get your podcasts. It all really does help. And now, a song from Mark Geary's new album, The Fool. This is Don't Break.
This might hurt and leave a red scar. Dig that dirt and find out who you are. Things fall apart, just keep giving. All around you, words and pieces, just keep living. And there's a world that's wide and waiting. It's a choice, that's all I'm saying. All this can change. Stop your crying. The night will
Neil Young.